Thank you, Loren, for joining us and presenting from Sefaria, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Loren. It's so nice to see you all. I'll admit I can't see all of you at the same time, but so if there are any questions, just interrupt me, please. By way of introduction, I am Sefaria's engagement associate. I've been at Sefaria for about a year, and I have been using Sefaria for several years. I did happen to go to rabbinical school and, just a lifelong learner, you could say, as I can tell that all of us are. I hope one day I will be just like you, only hopefully we'll be learning in person, but always learning. And so I'm so grateful that you are all here, especially in a time when a lot of people aren't doing Jewish learning. And here you are. So a pat on the back. So thank you for having me. It's great to be here. So we're going to be here for about an hour, I guess 56 minutes or so at this point together. And we're going to do some review from what Sara did last Thursday. I know not all of us were here. And as I mentioned earlier, before we started recording and before we all were here, that in Jewish tradition, we're always doing review. We're always reviewing. We're doing chazara, whether it's reading the Torah, the same parshas every year, or learning the same Sefaria tools every now and then. And there's always something new that comes from each conversation. So we're gonna do a lot of the basics. We're not gonna do the fancier features like source sheets, but I will show you some of my favorite tools on Sefaria. And I would say our goal is threefold. I want you to feel excited. I want you to feel curious. I want you to feel more confident than you had been before tonight about engaging with Sefaria. I want you to actually use Sefaria, not now, not during, but afterwards, in your life, in your learning. I want you to use Sefaria in your learning and teaching. Right? When David is giving a class, perhaps he's teaching, I'm not sure, maybe from a shared screen, but I know a lot of Sefaria, maybe there's a world where you'll have it open on your screen also, and you'll be able to click around. And while David's talking, you might even go and click, trying to go on your own journey, but always paying attention, with one ear open. So I want you to actually use Sefaria in your own learning. And if you decide to teach someday, teaching as well. I want you to learn about features that you didn't know about before. Perhaps you are familiar with Sefaria. Maybe you've used it before, but actually there are always features that are sort of hidden, but also very helpful. So I want you to be able to see, wow, like when Jacob realized, oh, Mano Raha Makom Hazeh, how holy is this place? And I didn't know it. I want you to say, how holy is this Sefaria? How great is this feature? And I did not know it. And in terms of content, we're going to dip our toes into the Book of Ruth. And why the Book of Ruth, you might ask, or you might not ask. The Book of Ruth will be read next week on the second day of Shavuot. It's a Book of Ruth. It's actually a Megillah. So we could call it the Megillah, but let's not get confused, Megillat Ruth. And there are many interesting themes about in the Book of Ruth. I actually encourage everybody to study it on their own, including just reading through it. It is like something like 58 verses, the whole Megillah. It's actually funny I say that because usually the whole Megillah means like the whole spiel, the whole thing. No, but the whole Megillah here it's a short Megillah. So I encourage you all to read it on your own. Okay, so I'm putting it in the chat right now, just a source sheet. And this is basically the same sheet as Sara Wolkenfeld, our Chief Learning Officer, made last week. The only difference is if we come across some interesting text tonight, I'm going to add those to that source sheet. Okay, I'm going to add those to that source sheet so that we'll have it for our records in case you ever want to go back to it. I don't know how many sources we're going to cover, but we want it to at least be there. We have to set it up first. So I want you to write questions in the chat. We're going to take periodic question breaks. And if you want, you can stay on at the end for more questions and we'll send the recording. I imagine it's all on Facebook Live. And you can sign up for more webinars, look at past recordings of webinars to sort of keep this fresh in your mind. I'm going to put that in the chat as well. So just by way of introduction, let me pause actually. So is there anybody, so let me make my screen a little bigger. Can I get like if you're able to, can I have like 1 to 5 with your hands? 1 being Sefaria, like African safari. What are we doing here? 5 being, oh, like I should be teaching this class. So can I just get a show of hands? And Cindy, in a minute, I'll have you just share.
I will do 2
Okay, great. Okay. All right, David, please, you have a 5. You should be teaching this class. Take it away. Take it away. So am I right to say the average is about 2, 3? Yeah. Something like that. Okay. I didn't do so well in math, but that's what I got. Amazing. That's helpful for me to know. I'm going to say some things you might know, and I want you to feel comfortable asking as well. Now, let me try to make my Zoom screen smaller so I can see you, so I can see my internet screen. Great. So you know about Sefaria. You know we're a Jewish virtual library, 258.9 million words. It's a lot of words. I'm not going to speak that many today. Something like 500,000 users per month. Thank you, COVID, actually. So let us begin. I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. And we are going to begin our adventure. So let's start with searching for a text directly. That's what we're going to start with. And I imagine Sarah did some of that before. Let's just start with the Book of Ruth for starters, because because you're going to notice what's going to happen. What do you think if I were to type in Ruth, or if you were to Google Ruth, what would come up? If you just Googled Ruth, and you can everyone speak up. What would happen if you Googled Ruth?
Oh, you'd get the Megillah.
You'd get
Babe Ruth.
A link to the Megillah.
Okay, maybe a link to the Megillah. Maybe you get Babe Ruth. Yeah.
Babe Ruth.
Anybody else? Probably get maybe like history of the name Ruth. Maybe did you mean roots? I don't know, right? You get a lot of things. So in the search bar, when I type something in, I'm going to see a few different things. I'm going to type Ruth. Now, what are the different things that we notice here? There's Ruth Rabbah, hashtag Ruth, trending. Ruth Rabbi Ruth, Ruth Belinsky Friedman, Ruth Calderon, if any that name rings a bell. A name sounds familiar from Knesset, and then search for Ruth. So each of these will take me to a different place, and this will happen anytime. If I type in Exodus, let's see what happens. Exodus here. Exodus, there's the Exodus Rabbah, hashtag Exodus, and then all these other things, and then search for Exodus. So I want you to know that each of these symbols means something. So the first one, this is an open book. So when I click this, Ruth, it's going to take me to the home page for the Book of Ruth. So if I click it, here we are. We're at the book. I can have a little summary of the book right here. I see chapter 1, 2, 3, 4. I told you it's a very short book. In this, just looking at this page here, I have, that's like I would say the main stuff to know about on this page. You'll notice there's an Aleph A here. I imagine Sarah covered that with you, but in general, that will change the language from Hebrew to English or vice versa. But before doing that and really going into the Book of Ruth, if we click Ruth again. So again, all of these, whenever there's a book next to it, that's telling you that this is a work. This is a work in our library. Ruth Rabbah, if you've ever heard of Midrash Rabbah, Bereshit Rabbah, or Genesis, Exodus Rabbah, these are all works of Midrash, of rabbinic interpretation on the Book of Ruth. So that'll take me to that work. Then I see hashtag Ruth, and this is my favorite. Hashtag will take me to a topics page. A topics page, if I click it, it's not the Book of Ruth. It's like Ruth's home. So you'll see Ruth, biblical figures. And it gives me a little bio very briefly. Ruth is the protagonist of the Book of Ruth. Though a Moabite foreigner, she followed her beloved Israelite mother-in-law Naomi to Bethlehem after their husbands died. She committed herself to Naomi and the Israelite people. There she found a new husband and became an ancestor of King David. In case you didn't know, Ruth, King David is a descendant of Ruth. That's very interesting to know, very important. So we have a little bio. Right here under sources, we have like top hits. I believe the way it works is like based on the frequency that people put texts in their own source sheets. It appears in that order. So Ruth 1:16-17 is the most cited book, is the most cited work, I guess, that features Ruth on Sefaria, followed by here. And here's, I think, where it gets a little bit interesting, right? It makes sense that the Book of Ruth would be the most commonly cited, right? But now what happens here? All of a sudden, Deuteronomy. What does Deuteronomy have to do with Ruth? Any ideas?
Moabites.
Yeah.
Moabites?
Yeah.
Bed bug bites. What Moabites? What's with the Moabites?
Well, Ruth was
He's
a
a Moab.
Moabite.
Ruth was a Moabite. Okay. Okay, good. But other people are Israelites. I'm not going to see. I don't know what's the connection. So Ruth was a Moabite. We're not going to go into the details right now about Moabites, but there's a law actually that the Israelites were not supposed to marry Moabites and Ammonites. So a lot of people are bringing this text here that says from Deuteronomy, no Ammonite or Moabite shall be admitted into the congregation of the Lord. Now we have from a Mishnah and Yevamot that's typically dealing with when somebody dies, when a husband dies and they're levirate marriage, when a husband dies and they don't have a child, the wife in biblical times would marry the next of kin or the brother of that deceased husband. That is what happens in the Book of Ruth. Then we get to Genesis. All these we're noticing here, Ruth Rabbah, of course, right? Judges. These are all works. Leviticus. So this is something to know, of course, about in Jewish literature, rabbinic literature. Every text is in conversation with one another. No book is on its own. And in a sense, they're all in this model. It's not that because Ruth was written at a certain time, it never has nothing to do with Leviticus. No, actually, some of the laws from Leviticus are featured in the Book of Ruth, namely about leaving over part of your land. Is that am I making that up? Is that Leviticus? David, help me out here.
That's Leviticus.
Yeah, right. Leaving over part of your land for the poor, right? When Ruth is out gleaning, trying to harvest. So this is just something to see that for every topic, we have top hits here for texts. Then and also, by the way, you can filter by, right now it's relevance, right? I can do chronological. So then I'm only going to get the Torah ones first, and then Nevi'im, then prophets, then writings, right? So we're seeing a lot of Genesis. So something about Ruth is in conversation with Genesis, according to our Sefaria users who have made source sheets. Then we go to sheets, this tab here, and this will give me all of the sheets that somebody who has created the sheet has put a tag to say this is about Ruth. So we have a love story. Okay, so I'm learning something. We're learning something about the book without even reading the book already, right? Overcoming challenges, chesed, kindness, loving kindness, sustaining another person. That is relevant. What else are we seeing here? When the going gets tough. That's something, if I'm personally going through something tough, I might want to click that and see, what does Ruth have to teach me about when the going gets tough? Being Jewish, belonging. All of these are themes of Ruth, and we're learning this just by looking at the sheets themselves. So that's the tab of sources. That's the tabs of sheets. Yes, Morris, please.
Is this kind of like a Wikipedia for Jews?
In the sense, well, Wikipedia is well edited, and there are many quality controls with Wikipedia. You try, saying, bringing, creating Wikipedia for David Schwartz is King David's descendant. Maybe it's true, I don't know. But somebody's going to take that down pretty fast. On Sefaria, it's up to the users. Now, it's up to you to decide. Anybody can create a source sheet. Anybody can put whatever they want on that source sheet, with a few exceptions. Advocating for violence, missionizing, things of that nature. But for the most part, source sheets that people create. So I'll just click one. So Ruth and Boaz, a love story, happens to be by a friend of mine. Right. So he has here. What he did was he created this sheet on his own. Right. He has a few verses from the Book of Ruth. Rashi commentaries on the Book of Ruth. And then he has questions, actually. Look at this. This is something I could print this out for Shavuot and learn it, right? What do you think the people, right? He has these questions here. People make source sheets in different ways. Some people will put videos. Some people put songs, audio, pictures. All the pictures we want it to be, publicly available pictures, not copyrighted pictures. So in a sense, it's Wikipedia, but so it's Wikipedia in that anybody can add anything. But it's not Wikipedia. We're not policing you. We're not going to police your ideology. As long as you don't advocate for violence or any of those red lines, we want you to feel like the Torah is yours. You can create your own Torah and bring as many texts as you want to be in conversation with each other and reveal sort of a new Torah. Not that type of new Torah, but a Torah of your own interpretation, based on, in Sefaria. And also we want to be able to see that. So some sheets are public and some are private. All of these sheets we see here are publicly available. The author has said, I don't need to hold on to this on my own. I want to share this with other people. So these people, in a sense, are doing a great service for the Jewish people and anybody who wants to learn Torah. They're saying, this might have been my class. Maybe it's like something I make money, for, doing, I'm teaching. But they're saying that's okay. Other teachers can use it too.
So
Any
on
other
on the side, you have all these different topics.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank
What are
you,
those?
Michael.
Yeah.
This is also a great part. Unfortunately, I don't think this is as helpful as most topic pages are, but on the sidebar here, these are other topics that are connected to Ruth. So obviously we have these names here, Boaz, Naomi, Shavuot. Where did we see anything about Shavuot so far? Anything to do with Ruth? Not in the sources. I don't see anything about Shavuot. So this is telling me that Ruth is associated with Shavuot. Any ideas as to why Ruth? Okay, actually, should we go back for a second and talk about what's the Book of Ruth about? Is that helpful? Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I'll be because I think the description on Jewish Virtual Library is quite good. It's quite good actually. So we're just gonna look that up. Virtual. Let's look here. And it's actually very short. Ruth. Bingo. Okay. Here we go. So let's just start here. Naomi and her husband Elimelech immigrate to Moab. We talked about Moab already a little bit, the Moabites, the land of Moab, not the land of Israel, a nation bordering the land of Judah, to escape starvation. There was a famine. Elimelech, the husband of Naomi, dies, and Naomi's sons, Elimelech and Naomi's sons, marry these two Moabite women named Ruth and Orpah. Approximately 10 years after the marriage, both of Naomi's sons die. So much death. Elimelech dies, the father dies. The husband dies. Then the sons die. And now we're left with three people, Naomi and her daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth. Naomi's left with no blood relatives. She wishes to return, right? Because they just went to Moab to escape the famine. And she's like, what am I doing here? I'm in a foreign land. I'm an immigrant. And all of my support system, nobody's here. So she wants to go back to Beit Lechem, to Bethlehem. Her two daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth, request to accompany her to Judah to go back. Naomi tries to dissuade them. No, please, I got this. You don't have to, you don't have to do that. Orpah says, okay, all right, fine. I'll stay here. And she remarries. And Ruth says, no, I am staying with you. And then she says this famous verse, if you remember, I believe 116 to 117, if we go back here, was the gold, gets the gold. Ruth replied, do not urge me, right? Here we are. Do not urge me to leave you, to turn back and not follow you. For wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. There's a song, I think. Your people. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. Thus and more, may the Lord do to me, if anything but death parts me from you. That's what Ruth says. Maybe some of that might sound familiar to you. So they go back to Bethlehem, right? They go back to Bethlehem. Life is still hard. Ruth is gleaning. She's harvesting produce, grains on this guy Boaz's farm. Boaz is a relative of Elimelech. Boaz is much older than Naomi. Than Ruth. So Boaz realizes that Ruth returned from Moab with Naomi. He treats her with special dignity. He asks her to work on his farm. Naomi realizes that if Ruth married Boaz, remember back here, just in the sources sheet here, we saw this thing, Mishnah Yevamot here. And we briefly talked about Levirate marriage, which is where if a man and a woman are married and the husband dies without children, right? So we had Ruth, and we had, I believe it was Machlon, was one of the sons. he died, right? So now Ruth is a widow without a child. And there's nobody to continue Machlon's name and Elimelech's name, his father. So what happens? They say, oh, well, Boaz is related to Elimelech. So maybe Boaz and Ruth, maybe they can get together and maybe they can continue the line. Bottom line, they get married. Some interesting other things happen, and I actually want to talk about that shortly. So they get married, and they have a child, Obed, and eventually grandson is King David. That's the story of Ruth. What does this have to do with Shavuot? Friends, please tell me, because it's on the side here, and I don't know why. I mean, I think I know why, but I'm actually not 100% sure. What does that have to do with Shavuot?
Barley.
Barley. Who said that? Cindy? Cindy? Okay, first of all, that's an amazing answer for a few reasons. One of which is it's like the most boring answer, but it's so true. But it's true. It's true. And that's not the answer I would have expected to hear. I love it. I love it. Because I feel like Shavuot, was originally, as you said, right, it had to do with grain. And then now, but we celebrate it as the day the Torah was given. So we've kind of left that agriculture behind. So I love, Cindy, that you're situating us in the original context of Shavuot. Thank you. Why else? Why else? And Cindy, I'm sorry if you are a grain harvester. I didn't mean to offend you.
No, I'm a grain consumer, but not a grain harvester.
Okay, well, you process things. You have to be careful. I'm just saying. Okay, so great. So what does that have to do? What's with Shavuot? What is Shavuot all about? What does that have to do with Shavuot?
Matan Torah.
Matan Torah, giving of the Torah. I didn't see anything about the Torah here. I didn't see anything about God here. By the way, God, let's just look here. Check this out. This is another cool feature.
Your God will be my God.
What if I type in, let me just type in God's name here. Okay, I'm going to type it in Hebrew, okay? Actually, no, let's just type it in English. God, let's just type God. 52,000 times in this Sefaria library.
Huh.
By the way, just like we saw text and sheets, this is just, these are all texts that say God. I can filter, I can sort. I can sort it by relevance. I can sort it by chronology. Same thing as before. Sheets, these are all sheets that have the word God in them. 20,000 of them. That's a lot of sheets. That's a lot of God. It would be amazing if there was only one sheet, just like one God. But this is cool. If you go to filter, I can filter it by work. So Tanakh, if I only want to see things from Tanakh, I can click that. If I want to see only a Mishnah, I can click that. And by the way, remember, we're doing it in English here, so we're a little limited. But if I want to see how many times the word God appears in the Book of Ruth, I'm going to, Tanakh, so that's the Bible. I'm going to look for Ruth. 13. Okay, if I click it. So God is in the book, so your God is my God. We just saw that, Ruth 1:16. It's also 1:15. We just saw that, unto her God. We have 1:20. I don't know why it said 13 here, but it's only, here it's only 4. So God is not a major figure in the Book of Ruth. So we're talking about Matan Torah, about giving the Torah. So A, I didn't see anything about Torah, and B, I didn't see much about God, except for this line. So what does Ruth have to do with Shavuot?
Isn't Shavuot the Feast of Weeks?
Yeah, but Paul, we already got that answer. We want to, yeah.
But
So I think that's,
does it, and the Torah doesn't always say that at 60 days after the Exodus is when the Torah was given. So it's like Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah is implied rather than said.
one more time. You're first of all,
The
so I
giving
think
of
it's
the Torah-
minus 10. Yeah.
That comes on Shavuot. Sorry, it's implied in, I don't remember exactly where. That so many
right.
days following.
Right. Yes. Mimochorat HaShabbat, after Shabbat. And there's a whole Karaite, Rabbinite debate about what that means, the day after Shabbat. When do we start counting the Omer? When is the act? Yes. So it does, the Torah tells us when the Torah, how many days the Torah from Pesach, the Torah was to be given, but it never associates Shavuot, our holiday, strictly speaking, with the giving of the Torah. There's a whole class we could do just on that alone, about the dating of Shavuot. But if we're focusing on Ruth, I want to focus on I think 2 things.
What about
Yes,
Jubilee?
Jubilee,
Jubilee and sacrifice.
Sacrifice.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. What are there any other ideas before we move on?
Oh, and her connection with King David, Mashiach.
Okay. So these are all, I think, interesting questions like why is the book important? I'm realizing, just thinking, we've sort of already got into Ruth, but I actually want to just take a step back. We're going to go back to Ruth shortly, but I want to take a step back and just to cover some of the basics in the library. This is my bad. I got so excited about learning with you all. And usually when we do this, we're not super in depth into the text. So I just want to just kind of look through here. We're in the Sefaria library here. This is if you just walk into a library and look around, right? The majestic library. It doesn't look so majestic here, but it is, let me tell you. So how did I get here, first of all? In the top left corner. So we call it a hamburger. There's the bread and the vegan patty in the middle or something, right? When you click the hamburger, it takes me to the library. So like, let's say I had gone to my profile, which is just here. It's my profile. So you can see all the sheets that I've made. If I click the hamburger, it's my library card. I just entered the library. I have a whole list of texts, right? These texts are like the core of our library: Tanakh, the Bible, Mishnah, Talmud, Midrash, Halacha, Kabbalah, liturgy, right? If you want to see the Siddur, Jewish thought, Tosefta, Chassidut, Musar, amazing things. All of these are here, and each one is color coded. So if I wanted to see anything from Tanakh, if I want to go into Tanakh sort of without knowing what I'm going to do, I'm just going to click here and see. Now I have all these books I can choose from. Calendar is also in our library here. And this is all learning that's based on some sort of like schedule. So Parshat HaShavua. If I want to know, I want to get to the Parsha. Remember, we're in the library. I click the hamburger, and now I just scroll down and I get to here, Parshat HaShavua, Bamidbar. If I want to get to the Haftorah, here it is. If I'm doing Daf Yomi, studying a daily page of Talmud, etc., etc. So one way I can get to Parshat Bamidbar is by clicking here. And it takes me to Parshat Bamidbar. There are a few other ways I could do it. First of all, I could type in numbers 1:1 in the bar here. I can actually just type in a text, numbers 1:1, citation. I can type in, let's see, Parshat Bamidbar. And that takes me to the topics page, Parshat Bamidbar. I click read the portion. I'm back here. Now we go back here. So there are a number of different ways I can get to the Parsha. But know that if I'm ever lost, just go to my library card and go down. So what do we see here? We see Hebrew on the left, English on the right. What are some other things we see? We see a star here. Let's say I want to save this. Let's say I have an account. I have an account on Sefaria. Because if I could be logged out, right? Right now I'm logged in. You can see that because I have my Sefaria button here. But if I were just to come from, just from nowhere, I didn't have my library card. I didn't have my, right? If you don't have a library card, you can't check out a book, right? So like you can go, you can read, you can explore, right? But you can't check out a book. So what happens when you have an account is you can save texts, right? I could click this star and it saves it and I can come back to it later. I'm going to show you what else we can do. I can make a source sheet. We talked about source sheets, like a compilation of texts and questions if I want, and art if I want, create a narrative, right? I can write my sermon on Sefaria. When I have my library card, when I have my Sefaria account, when I have my account, I can make a source sheet. I can even learn in Chavruta, in partners through video chat with another person through Sefaria. I'm going to show you that in a second. Before doing that, notice this here, this Aleph A. You see that? When I click it, this shows up. I have language. Let's say I just want to see English. I click the A. There we go. Bye-bye, Hebrew. Let's say I really miss the Hebrew. I click the Aleph. Oh, no, but I want a little bit of English. Okay, so I'll go back to the middle, the Aleph A here. Okay, so that's if I want to change the language. Maybe I want to kind of play with layout. So this is one type of layout, right? Where the Hebrew is on the top, English is on the bottom. Another one is this way, where it's columns facing inwards. For you, this is just an aesthetic choice. It's whatever you want. For those of us with glasses or whose eyes are hurting sometimes, especially looking at screens all day, especially now, this is great. Font size. I click it, makes font bigger. Let's make it bigger, bigger, bigger. Look at that. Maybe I want to practice reading my Hebrew. Now I can read it really well. I want to practice my trope. Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe midbar Sinai be'ol moed. Right? I see it close up. Make it smaller. We're going to leave the aliyot. That just tells me the number of aliyot. So like right now, if I turn it on, it'll just, well, it's not doing it right now for some reason, but it'll just have the number, like what aliyah you're on. And then this, if you want to get rid of vowels, if you want to have trope, if you don't want trope, you just want just the vowels. So that's the Aleph A button. That's the Aleph A button. Let me pause for the Aleph A and let me take any questions. What questions do I have? Any questions? Okay.
I don't have a
Yeah.
question, but I have a hypothesis that the aliyot might not be there for the first one because it's
Because the one is there.
but it might be there for the other ones.
Yeah, that's probably correct. That's probably right. Thank you. If I ever
Does it take into account the triennial cycle?
it does not. That is, but see, this is why it's great to interact with people, with the community, people like you, because now we know somebody wants triennial cycle. Like, why didn't we think of that before? Why is that not an option? Right? This is great. I love it. David, if I forget, please write it down in the follow-up notes. Thank you. We can call it the, wait, I can't see your name on my screen. Who said that? Was it
Michael.
Michael? We're going to call it the Michael triennial button. If you see the chevron, see this little chevron here? On all text, you'll have the name of the work and a chevron. If I click the chevron arrow, it'll take me, right? Remember this? Like we saw the Book of Ruth. This is the Book of Numbers. It's Numbers homepage, right? Again, there's like a little bit of a sort of summary and chapters. If I want to go to chapter 7, I'll click 7. 8, maybe I want to go by Parsha. Click Parsha. Let's say Naso. Naso is the longest Parsha in the Torah. It's like, I don't know how many verses, 200 something. So I can go by Aliyah here. Let's say I'm late to shul and I'm using Sefaria. And I hear, oh, they're on the third Aliyah. Be like, oh my God, okay, fine. What am I going to do? I'm going to go to Bamidbar. But this time I want to go to the book Bamidbar, right? Right? I want to get to the book homepage and there's the book you sign. Click book. Okay, it's Parsha Bamidbar. We're on the third Aliyah. There I am, third. We made it. We made it. Okay. Was that too fast or should I do it again?
No, it's fine.
Does anybody want to see it again? If you want to see it again, just tell me. It's not a magic trick. You can do it twice. Okay. So I want to show you, this is what makes Sefaria not just a library, not just a place that you read text, but a place that I think really shows the beauty of the Jewish library. And this is the side panel, the resource panel. If you're on the app, there's a Sefaria app, the resource panel will come up from the bottom. Just so you know, that's why we don't really call it a side panel, we call it a resource panel because it's resources. So if I click this here, whenever you click on a text, no need to be afraid. Something's going to pop up at the side. Just warning you. If I click it, okay, let's go here. Let's go here. This one. Let's go to second verse. I should say, by the way, this text, Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe be'el Aaron lemor. Usually you just kind of, like God said to Moses, right? I know one, I can't remember who, but there's a Hasidic thinker, I think, who every time he would hear it, he would just kvel and just be like, oh my God, what God spoke to Moses. That's a miracle. Oh, I'm not even going to go further. Right. So just that line alone is worth unpacking. But let's go here. So if I click it, right, if you'll notice these things on the side are changing, right? Because it's all relevant to this particular verse. Whatever verse this is highlighting, this is what this is about. So there are a few things here. One, I could click about. This is the first thing here. Here's the book. About this book. Let's say I just ended up here, perhaps. I maybe got here through different connections, or I made a typo, or I just made a wrong turn. I see Numbers 2. Is that like second book of Numbers? Like Book of Judges? Like, I don't know, like Kings 2? What is this? I click about, and it tells me about this work. It even tells me when it was composed. I'm curious about that, right? It gives me a whole thing here. And it even tells me what's the translation that I'm looking at here. I'm looking at the JPS 1985 translation. It tells me that. So if I'm ever like, this is a weird translation, or I do not like that, or that is offensive, I might click here. I might just see like, oh, okay, well, it's from there. That makes sense. So we have a few things here. One is commentary. We have 65. You see this number here in parentheses? That means there are 65 comments on this verse. 65 people said 65 things. It's like 2, 4, 6, it's like 15 words. How could you say 65 things on that? People did it. You'll notice here, the EN. This means within this box, when I click it, I'll find some texts that are in English. So if I look here, halacha, Jewish law, there are only 2 that mention this particular verse. Nothing, right? Actually, let's go here. Let's do this. Let's go to Ruth 1:16. Remember that? That was our first text. But Ruth replied, don't leave me, right? When Naomi was going to go back to Bethlehem, because she's like, what am I going to do here? I don't have any opportunities. I don't have any connections. My children died. My husband died. And Ruth says, no, I'm staying with you. So I click it. By the way, if you notice, I went to search. I typed in Ruth 1:16. I just typed in the verse and it took me right there. I click it. I see. Remember, if I click here, it'll tell me all about the Book of Ruth. I have commentary. So there are 20 comments. Interesting. So there are 20 comments on this particular verse. I would have expected more. And there are some in English. So I'm going to click here. And I get Rashi. Rashi is at the top, one of the most famous ones. He says 2 things about this verse. And they're in English. Look at that. So if I click it, do not urge me, do not press me. I mean, that's something he says. Oh, this is interesting. Look at this. This is what Rashi says on this verse. She says a lot of things, right? Wherever you go, I'll go. Wherever you lodge, I'll lodge. Your people should be my people. Your God, my God. It's kind of the same thing over and over and over again with a few different nuances. So Rashi says from here, our rabbis of blessed memory derived that if a proselyte, if a person comes to convert, we inform them of some of the punishments for violating the commandments. You've probably heard this thing about like shooing the potential convert away a few times. Some people do that, right? Let's just scroll down here. Okay, here we go. So that we inform the person of some of the punishments, so that is they decide to renege their intention on to convert, they can renege. Right? If you're going to make a choice, make sure you know what you're getting into. Otherwise, you should hold off. For out of the words of Ruth, you can learn what Naomi said to her. Watch this. By the way, I haven't even seen this text before. I just think I know where it's going. And is everybody on the edge of your seat? Stop looking ahead. Stop looking ahead. Everybody, stop looking ahead. Are people on the edge of their seats? Can I get like a yes or no? No? A yes? Okay. Here we go. So, for out of the words of Ruth, you can learn what Naomi said to her. From what we read of what Ruth says, we can learn within the lines. In the lines, I'm going to close this because I think people are reading it. I don't like it. We can read between the lines that Naomi was saying something. That Naomi was saying that there's something called black fire on white fire. The Midrash says the Torah, the Bible is made of black fire, black text, and there's white fire. There's all these spaces in between these letters, and those are teaching us something. We're going to see the white fire right now. So Ruth replies to her. So what do we learn? Naomi said, we may not venture outside the boundary of 2,000 cubits beyond city limits on Shabbos. She says, you don't want to join this group. We, in our Shabbat stuff, when you go outside of a city wall, you can only walk so far. You can't just walk. You can't go on a long, you can't go on a serious hike according to Naomi here. Like, why would you want to do this? Like, are you an outdoors person? Maybe you don't want to join this religion. Ruth replies, wherever you go, I will go. If you're going to go 2,000, cubits and stop there, I'm going to go there. If you're going to go a few cubits outside on Shabbat, okay, I'll go there too. I don't mind the distance. Naomi then says, we are prohibited to allow a woman to be secluded with a man who's not her husband. So, okay. Not sure why that's, she's just telling her that, I guess. Like, hey, are you sure you want to do this? I don't know your cultural norms. Ruth says, where you lodge, I'll lodge. Don't worry. I'll stay with you until I get married. No problem. Naomi then says, our nation is separated from other nations by 613 commandments. Hello, friends. Remember that thing about Shavuot? Matan Torah, giving of the Torah. Ruth was just informed. there were 613 commandments. Ruth doesn't say it in the black fire, but it says it in the white fire. It says it in the Midrash here. Ruth is getting the Torah revealed to her by Naomi.
Hmm.
She says there are 613 commandments. Like, I've given you 2 so far. There are 611 others. And Ruth says, your people are my people. Let's just pause there. How are those 2 lines connected? I'm asking you genuinely because I'm seeing this for the first time, and I mean it. What's the connection between your people or my people and our nation separated from other nations by 613 commandments?
Well, she's embracing Israel, even though she's learned the
Mhm.
burdens
Mhm.
of doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also it's saying something about what does it mean? What is the Jewish peoplehood? Right? That Jewish peoplehood is not only about, I don't know. I do happen to believe that Judaism is both about beliefs and about action, but this seems to be saying that something about peoplehood is shared action. Shared actions are, what is a people? A people is a community that does something together. We're not, like we have a shared code. We have a shared norms. This is what it means to be a people. I think we could read that in, maybe. Okay, Naomi says, idolatry is forbidden to us. You're going to have to give up idolatry, Ruth. To which Ruth replies, your God is my God. I don't mind. I'm ready to change gods. Naomi then said, 4 types of death penalties were delegated to Beit Din, to the judges, to the courts to punish transgressors. You sure you want to do this? This is life or death here. Ruth replies, where you die, I will die. Naomi continues, 2 burial plots were dedicated to the courts, to Beit Din, to bury those executed. 1 for those stoned, 1 for those burned. 1 for those, okay, it's like, I don't know. 1 for those, I'm sorry, it's getting so gory. 1 for those decapitated and 1 for those strangled. And for those, sorry, there are 2 sets. 1 for these 2 sets of death, 1 for these 2 sets of death. And Ruth replies, there I'll be buried. I don't mind. Wow. Give me something, friends. What are we making of this text?
Rashi is filling in normative Judaism in Ruth's response. He's basically saying, well, this is what Ruth is saying, but she's saying it in response to what Naomi is presenting her regarding what Judaism is all about.
Okay, great. What other? Give me something else.
Can I just say it's kind of stunning that it's an oldish woman, widow, articulating per Rashi.
By the way,
Rashi's
quoting a midrash, just to be sure. Rashi's quoting.
Is this Talmudic? Where's the original source?
Okay, so I'll show you, but then I want you to continue saying what you're saying because it was beautiful. So look, just to go back here, right? Commentary, Targum, that's Aramaic translation. Talmud, this will tell me that there are 2 times in the Talmud where this verse is cited. So if I want to see what do the rabbis do with this verse, I'll click Talmud, Yevamot, and then it gives me 2 situations where it actually says here, right?
Brilliant.
It gives me this case, right? On Shabbat's prohibited, go beyond, right?
We haven't got to that in Daf Yomi yet.
Haven't got it. We'll get there. Stick with it. And if I go to Midrash, right? Midrash, there are 6 Midrashim here on this, English. Let's look here. Oh, so this is a different one. There's a different Midrash about that.
Similar, but there's some of the components.
Yeah, but please tell me tell us all what you were saying about this text. It was beautiful.
Well, I just think it's fascinating that you've got 2 women having this conversation. It passes the Bechdel test. They're not talking about men. And it's kind of, and per Rashi, this is kind of defining the parameters, or per Rashi quoting other sources. I think that's kind of stunning, kind of wonderful.
Yeah. Where are the old men sitting in the Beit Din, in the court? Not here. This is I mean, if this is about, the rabbis understand this, the sages understand this to be conversion. It doesn't have to be that, but they understand this to be, Ruth is the first convert.
Right, but Naomi's the one doing the conversion. It's just kind of cool.
Yeah, beautiful insight. What are any other thoughts or reflections, friends?
At first glance, it looks like Ruth likes Naomi a lot, so she wants to be with her, which always they told us the wrong reason for conversion. They're not because you want to get married. But when you're going into depth, you're really saying is, no, it's not just because I like you, although I do, I am you.
Beautiful. I mean, it reminds me of the ways that according to Rashi in the Midrash, that humans were created, that Adam and Eve were originally one body, sort of, like sharing a body, and they were split apart. And when we're looking at another person, in a sense, we're looking at ourselves. Yeah. Beautiful. Other reactions, other thoughts? Or should we keep going and see what else this library has to tell us? Okay, we'll keep going. I just want to see here, this Midrash here. Looked interesting. Right, here's just another interpretation. Ruth Rabbah 2:22. And Ruth said, entreat me not to leave you and to return from following you. Ruth 1:16. That's where we are. What does entreat mean? Literally hurt. Ruth said to Naomi, don't sin against me by telling me to leave and return from following you. I intend to convert you anyway, and it was better that I do it with you than with someone else. I should be a rabbi. When Naomi heard this, she immediately began to lay out before the laws of conversion. Naomi said, my daughter, Jewish women do not go to the non-Jews' theaters and circuses. Certainly not now. No one's going to theaters and circuses. Ruth said, where you go, I'll go. All right, I don't need the circus. So Naomi said, my daughter, Jewish women do not live in a house where there's no mezuzah. Ruth said, that mezuzah, not such a big deal. Where you live, I'll live. Or that mezuzah is gorgeous. I want to live there too. Your people shall be my people refers to warning and punishment, and your God shall be my God refers to the rest of the commandments. Another interpretation. It's interesting that she chose these, right? What are we seeing here? We're seeing just in this alone that Naomi's using different commandments, right? The process is similar, but the information she's being told is different, which I think is interesting. I want to point something out to you, just to go back to Talmud. If I click Talmud or Yevamot, I see there are two incidences. I wanted us to see a few things. First of all, let's say I don't want to see it in English. Let's say I don't want to know what I'm reading. I can click the Aleph here. Now I'm in Hebrew. But if I click the A, back to English, just so we see. So, and if you look here, you'll notice here, Yevamot, Ruth Rabbah, Rashi. This is like my history that we just looked at these three things, right? We looked at Rashi, we looked at Ruth Rabbah, we looked at Yevamot. Let's say I want to go back to Ruth Rabbah. I'll click that. Oh, we're back here. Let's say I want to go back to Rashi. I'll click here. It's just an easy shortcut.
Oh my.
Instead of going back, right? I didn't even know that. It's great. So I want you to look at two things here. Well, three things. One is that you see this bolded thing. I'm going to zoom in. You see how this is bolded here? And when I go over it, it underlines. It's not so interesting in this particular case, but if you click it, opens up a new tab. Here, another window. This window happens to be the same exact text because it's quoting that. But whenever you see in the sidebar something quoted, you can click it and it takes you to the new one. And let's say I want to go even deeper. I'll click that. And here we go again. Here we go again. Another Rashi. And let's open it again. And it just keeps going. So that's something to know. You can go from text to commentary or interconnection. These are all interconnections to another connection, and so on and so forth. It's like being in a real library. You're like, oh, I love that. I'm gonna go here. Oh, that book references that book. Okay, I'm gonna go there. I'm just gonna keep taking them off the shelf. Make sure you just put it back where you got it. Okay, so that's if I click open. I'm sorry, that's if I click one of the sources. If I click open, what this is going to do is it's actually going to open up this volume of Talmud for me on this page, on this source. So if I click open on the right, I'm going to see, bingo. This is the page of Talmud here that is citing this particular verse. Just took me right here.
So you get an expansion of what's going on, and before or after, it may be continuing to provide information about
Yes.
Naomi and Ruth, or about the story of Ruth. Yeah.
Check this out, right? I'm going to do this for the same thing with that Rashi. Now, this I think what's actually going to be very helpful. If I click open, It's going to take me, this is the Rashi. And now I can interact with Rashi on Rashi's own terms. Because before, I only could look at Rashi relative to this verse here, right? Now I can actually open up Rashi and see who talks about Rashi, or what's Rashi referring to. I don't know. Let's try it. If I click this, right, side panel, doesn't really help me so much in this particular case. All it does is link me back to that verse of Ruth. So it does. This one's a bit circular. So one other thing, right? So that's what we saw. We saw that if you click open, it opens it up in its own. You can sort of interact with it on its own. And then if I click add to sheet, right? I told you I would do this. If I click add to sheet, it's going to add it to that sheet that we have at the beginning. So now I can remember it. Maybe we like that midrash too. Do we like that midrash? Yeah, let's add this to the sheet. Why not? Okay. I want you to look at a few other things. These are important as well and helpful. So sheets. Sheets are, we saw earlier, right? All those source sheets. Source sheets that cite this particular verse. There are 211 source sheets on Sefaria that cite this verse. If I click it, it'll give me a list of all the sheets that cite this verse. And I can go through it. Seeing Ourselves in Tradition, Queer Characters in Jewish Text by my friend Abby. Whoa, maybe I'm interested in that. Where you go, I will follow. All right, it looks interesting. Gay root, conversion in Jewish tradition, a reform perspective. This is great stuff. I would
You
never
missed the
even-
vaccines.
Where?
Down. There it
That's
is.
complete Shavuos handout. Number 1, vaccines, immunizations, inoculations. This is the whole thing. Okay, there's gonna be a lot of stuff here. Chavruta o mituta, friendship in the Jewish tradition. Take your pick. Mike, that's my friend Mike. Your people will be my people, right? Conversion, Jewish status, and Aliyah in the state of Israel. Now, if I click one of these sheets, matrilineality, right? If I click one of the sheets, look at that. I have a whole entire source sheet that somebody made right here. Let's just pick a different one that has more connections. Let's look at, this is the Torah. Okay, so this particular source sheet cites our book. We can see, oh, look, this is, remember when you do the Zot HaTorah with the little pinky thing, lift up the Torah. We're all pointing to the Torah. This is the Torah. We have some art. Now, this source sheet cites Deuteronomy 4:44. Let's say I want to explore that. So what do? I click it. Click it. Sidebar. Keep going. We can play. It's like a Wikipedia. So is it like Wikipedia? To the extent that Wikipedia has wormholes and you just kind of get lost in it sometimes? Yeah, it's like that. Only you're lost in the sea of Talmud, in the sea of Torah. It's a beautiful sea to be in if you can swim. And Sefaria tries to help you swim because we're trying to make things in English, to make things free and available. We want to be available to help you too whenever you have questions in doing webinars like this. So that's sheets. Tells me all the sheets that cite this verse. Now I'm going to show you a secret. It's not a secret, just nobody knows about it. It happens to be my favorite part, in part because I worked on it significantly. Web pages. This is going to blow off those who are wearing socks. 428 web pages that we are linked to non-Sefaria. Name it. Not Chabad, Eish HaTorah, JTS, Jewish Action. Let's see it. If I click it, here we go. My Jewish Learning, YU Torah, Times of Israel, the Kabbalah of Time, or Torah Stone, JTS, Jewish Women's Archive. All these websites, Reconstructing Judaism, Torah Web, Rabbi Sachs, all these websites cite this verse. If I click, let's click My Jewish Learning, watch. What Ruth can teach us about celebrating Shavuot. We didn't even have to do this class today. We could have just clicked here. And this tells me, citing Ruth 1:16. Because sometimes it's just citing the whole book of Ruth. If it's just Ruth 1, chapter 1. Right. So look, now if I click here, a new Passover ritual honoring Jewish diversity, Ruth's Cup. Let's just click it. We're not exactly in the season, but if I click it, you can see my screen still. What do you see?
Oh,
What do you see right now? I just want to make sure. You see My Jewish Learning?
yeah.
Check that out. I didn't even have to go to Google. I don't mind Googling. I Google all the time. But because they installed our linker, whenever you're on their website also, you can link to us too. And you can see the verse. So that's a really cool thing, in my opinion, about Sefaria is this web pages function. If I'm on a verse and I just want to see like who else on the internet talks about it, then I just go there. I click what I go in the sidebar. Remember, I click here, goes down. This is sidebar. 428. It's a lot to choose from. I don't have to choose all. Go to the websites that look familiar, or go to ones that don't look familiar if you're looking for an adventure. Right? Jewish Women's Archive, Judith, Apocrypha, Ruth's Journey, the conversion story for Shavuot. Right? You get the point. You get the picture. It's amazing. It's great. What else? What else? What else?
Notes.
Shavruta. Yeah, go ahead.
What are notes?
Notes. Notes. Remember I told you about the library card thing and how if you're on a library card, you can, I mean, you can't scribble in the library books. Don't do that. But this is a special library. You can scribble in this book in a way, sort of. Sorry about the phone in the background. This is what happens when you have landlines. They ring sometimes and they don't stop. Notes. If I click notes, I can write my notes and say, Temple Har Zion is the best temple in the world. I love Torah. Add note. Nobody can see this note but me. Okay. So if I'm ever,
Or I can copy the text and then write a note about it.
you could do that too. Yeah, but you don't have to. It's right here. So like right here, I don't have a note, so nothing shows up. But if I'm scrolling through and I look notes, note 1, I click it, and here's my note. So yeah, it's a great function. I don't use it so often personally, but it's there. There's so many things that are there, and everybody uses it differently. It's like Torah. There's so many books. People learn different books. It's kind of whatever you're interested in. I want you to see a few things here. Chavruta. If you have an account on Sefaria, it's free. I can show you how to create one if you want. Chavruta. If I click it, watch. It gives me a link here. I send this link to my friend. I click start call. My friend goes to this link. If they do that, we are learning together on Sefaria. So this here is like sort of what it looks like. So if I did this, if I sent this link to a friend and that friend clicked it, we would both be on Sefaria with a window right here where my mouse is moving around with their picture, with their video and my video. And we're just talking like we're talking here, except we're both looking at this particular verse. That's if you have an account. Again, it's free. Everybody should have an account. But if you want to learn with a friend, with a grandchild, anybody virtually, you don't even need Zoom. Don't need any fancy Zoom numbers or setups or whatever. You just go to Chavruta. You can try that. If you want to share this particular text, oh my God. Oh, here, let's do this, right? If I love this Rashi, remember that Rashi? I love this Rashi so much. I'm going to open it and I want to send it to all my friends. So I click it. And I could say make a note here for future, but if I click share, I have a few options. I can send this URL to my friend, and then they'll actually get this whole entire thing. They'll get the Ruth 1 next to here. If I don't want them to see Ruth 1, I can click the X. I can exit out of my previous windows. I click the X, and now I'm just with Rashi. Rashi and I are spending time together. Ruth, hold up. So here we go. Right here's the URL. I share it with a friend. If I want to share it on Facebook, I click Facebook. I've actually never used that before, so I don't want to do that. Email, it'll just email to them. But really, if you just want to share a particular text with somebody, you can click this URL here. Or for easy, you could just click the URL up there. If you'll notice, I just want you to look at something here. Notice the URL here. It says sefaria.org/ruth.1.16 lang in equals in and with Rashi and we'll here. So let's just go. Let's keep it simple here. Let's keep it simple. So in this URL, it says Ruth.1.16. Okay. So what that means is this URL, each text here, each block has its own URL. Notice how the number's changing. Notice the number's changing. So this is telling me I'm on chapter 1, verse 16. Lang equals in means I'm looking at the English version. If I do both, it'll be lang equals bi for bilingual. Right. So this URL changes each time. So if I want to send a certain text to somebody, I just highlight the text, that particular text, and I send them that URL. Last thing, feedback. Let's say I have feedback. Let's say I have an issue with a text. I want a translation, report a bug, get help, request a feature, give thanks. Those are always nice. I can just go there. And we love to hear it. So trying to think if there's anything else I've missed. There's so much more we could do on Ruth. I know we just kind of touched the surface. What I would suggest you do, and I'll just maybe give you a taste of it. If I type in kindness, like chesed. By the way, if you want to see something really cool, I'm typing in chesed here. 40,000 texts in the Jewish library, in our library at least, 40,000 times. If I go to filter, remember our filter friend, it'll tell me how many times in each place, in each book. 280 times in Tanakh, 40 times in Mishnah, 4,500 times in Halacha. That tells me chesed, kindness, is probably an important concept in Halacha. If chesed is all over 4,500 times, it's a lot of chesed. Let's look at Kabbalah. How many times in Kabbalah? Because chesed is one of God's emanations. Also 3,500, right? These are cheseds all over the place. How many times is chesed mentioned in the book of Ruth? Let's look here. So notice it's a lot in Genesis, a little bit less in Exodus. And then it starts going down. Look at it, 4, 6, 8, and the whole book. These prophets are not really interested in chesed. That's interesting, I think, to notice. Chesed appears 8 times in the book of Ruth. That might not seem like a lot compared to 51 in the book of Genesis, but Genesis is huge. Ruth is 58 verses or something like that. 8 times in 58 verses. We don't have a calculator on Sefaria, but 8 divided by 58 is, no, not period. 8 divided by 58 is 14%. 14% of verses. I'm just guessing it. 14% of the verses in the book of Ruth talk about chesed. That's a lot of chesed. That's not insignificant. Of all the words you can use in the Hebrew library, the Hebrew language. So if I were to just filter and go to Ruth 8, right? This is going to give me, what's going on here? Sometimes my computer acts up. I blame my computer, not Safari. It happens. Nobody's perfect. I don't know why it says 3. It should say more. I think it should say more. But chesed, in any event, even if the word chesed only appears a certain number of times, that might actually be true. It might only appear 3 times. Even though it might only appear 3 times, there are many instances of chesed, of kindness in the book of Ruth. If you read it, it's all about friendship. It's about love. It's about relationship. And on Shavuot, and also the rabbis say that, the sages say that the book of Ruth, they're like, wait a sec, this is weird. Why is the book of Ruth in our corpus? Why was it written? I don't get it. There's nothing about kosher, not kosher, pure, impure, do this, don't do that. It's all about love and relationship. Come on, this is religion. We're tough. What is this? Give me the good stuff. The rabbis say no. The book of Ruth was written in order to teach about loving kindness. That was literally why it's called the book. I mean, it's called the book of loving kindness, in part because that's one of the messages of the book of Ruth. And what better holiday to study or to read the book of Ruth about kindness and about relationship and about giving and supporting than on Shavuot, when God gives us this really prized possession. That's an act of chesed. God, I mean, we're humans, we're imperfect. If you knew somebody might mess up that thing, like your, I don't know, an heirloom or something that you really valued, if you knew they were going to mess it up, assuming God knows things ahead of time, I don't know, probably wouldn't want to give it to them. But God trusted us. God gave us this Torah. It was actually an act of chesed to give us this treasure, that we get to study every day of our lives. This book that we get to read at least once a year. And also this idea that Ruth is all about love and relationship, that Shavuot it's almost like the sages say it's like a marriage. It's like a marriage between Israel and God. And I'm sure if we looked at marriage, actually, I don't know, if we looked at marriage, I haven't even tried it. I imagine we'll get to something related to Ruth somewhere. Let me type in Ruth here. I don't know. Oh no, this will be for our next time, perhaps. Let me stop there. I know we're a few minutes over. Again, I just wanted to remind you of our goals, at least my goals. And one of them was to help you feel excited about Sefaria and to think it's like the coolest thing in the world, or almost. I wanted you to feel more confident that in your own lives, whether it's during your studies with David or on your own, that you might be able to click around and at least know more after our meeting today than you knew before. I'm not saying you're going to be an expert, right? These things take time. And technology, don't get me started. I barely know what Instagram is, right? These things take time. But I do hope that you feel more confident, that you've learned about some new features, that if you were to go on Sefaria, you wouldn't click somewhere and be like, oh my God, where am I? How do I get out of here? Right? But that you go to the top right, top left, click the hamburger. We'll take you back to the library. You can just go back. It'll take you to the text right before that. I mean, I just want you to at least be more familiar with this, with what Sefaria looks like, what the contents are on Sefaria. And lastly, to learn a little bit about the Book of Ruth. We learned like what the Book of Ruth is about. We saw this really interesting midrash about conversion, about mitzvot, about receiving the Torah. Yeah, I think we did a lot tonight. Let me pause. Let's see, David. Yeah.
We found out what Naomi had to say.
Yes, we found out what Naomi had to say. Like, hey, we have to stop silencing voices. That's the beautiful thing about midrash. It raises up voices that have been silenced. And this is an important thing for our day today. How many voices have been silenced over years? And for social media, I mean, with social media, people have a platform to speak. And so we're learning a lot of narratives that have been around for a long time, around many social justice issues. And we think they're new, but they're not new. They just were never, they never had a platform before. Now they do. Midrash in a similar way tries to uncover some of those hidden narratives. Let me stop. David, let me turn it to you. Do we want to take more questions? Do we want to stop? Your call. And you are on mute, and that's okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm going to